The blind date was empty, until a poor girl sat down by mistake, and the CEO never let her go. Logan Hale sat alone at a table for two in the quiet corner of La Mirabelle, the kind of upscale restaurant that whispered elegance with every flicker of candlelight and clink of crystal. His suit was immaculate, his expression unreadable. He glanced at the time again, a habit more of frustration than hope. He was a man of precision, not sentiment. And yet, here he was, on a blind date his younger sister had insisted he needed. "You cannot run a hotel empire and run away from companionship," she'd said with her usual blunt sweetness. So he had relented, just this once. Then came the buzz on his phone. He unlocked it, already expecting a cancellation. "Sorry, something came up. I won't make it tonight." He stared at the screen for a moment, exhaled through his nose, and was about to stand when he heard a hesitant voice nearby. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Hale?" asked a soft, slightly breathless tone. Logan turned, expecting perhaps a late-arriving date. Instead, a young woman stood there, clutching a slim folder against her chest. She had golden blonde hair tied in a loose braid, cheeks flushed from the cold October evening, and wore a simple white blouse tucked into faded black slacks. There was no trace of the expensive designer aura his usual company carried. Before he could answer, the hostess approached with a slight bow. "Right this way, miss," she said, gesturing to the empty seat across from Logan. Chloe followed without hesitation, flashing an uncertain smile. She looked at the table set with fine china, glimmering silverware, and a menu that read like a symphony of French dishes. "Wow," she whispered, wide-eyed. "This company really knows how to treat its applicants." Logan blinked. "Applicants?" She sat down, opening her folder. "Yes, I'm here for the receptionist interview, for the new boutique branch opening downtown. The listing said to meet a Mr. Hale at the cafe inside the Mirabelle Hotel, and I assumed this was it, unless—" Her words slowed as she noticed the table's romantic setup, the wine bottle already chilling in a silver cradle, the single red rose in the vase. Her eyes flicked back to Logan's tailored suit and measured gaze. I'm so sorry," she stammered, starting to stand. "This must be some sort of mix-up. I didn't mean to interrupt your dinner." But Logan raised a hand, just slightly. His voice was even curious. "No, please, sit, I insist." Chloe hesitated, then lowered herself back into the chair. He gestured toward the folder in her hands. "You were saying?" She blinked. "You want me to continue?" Logan leaned back, watching her. There was something about the rawness in her voice, the earnest way she clutched her papers. It had been a long time since anyone had spoken to him without pretense. "I'm listening," he said simply. Chloe smiled, an embarrassed but sincere curve of her lips. "Okay, well, my name is Chloe Bennett. I'm originally from Willow Creek, a small town about 3 hours south of here. I studied hospitality management for 2 years before I had to drop out and start working full-time to help my mom and my little brother." She spoke fast, nervously, flipping to the neatly printed resume inside the folder. "I've worked front desk at 2 motels, handled check-ins, scheduling, complaints, and even learned to fix card readers. I don't have formal qualifications, but I'm quick to learn and, oh, I'm rambling, sorry." Logan didn't interrupt. He simply watched. There was something grounded in her, something honest that reminded him faintly of another life, one before suits and shareholders. Chloe looked down at her hands, her voice softening. "I really love the hotel world. I know to some people, it's just beds and breakfast buffets, but to me, it always felt like a second home. Somewhere you're welcomed, no matter where you come from." Logan's jaw tensed. He hadn't expected the words to hit so close. He cleared his throat. "Do you know who I am, Miss Bennett?" he asked gently. Chloe paused, then laughed. "You're Mr. Hale, right? My potential boss. I honestly didn't Google you. Should I have?" Logan shook his head, just barely suppressing a smile. "No, I think this went exactly the way it was supposed to. And for the first time that evening, he meant it. Logan didn't usually make spontaneous decisions, but something about the girl sitting across from him, nervous yet sincere, made him curious in a way he hadn't felt in years. The waiter returned, offering the wine list, hesitated at the unexpected change in company. Logan nodded once. "We'll dine." Chloe's eyes widened. "Oh, no, I didn't mean to crash your meal. I can just stay," Logan said, almost too quickly. Then, softer, "Consider it a thank you dinner, for being bold enough to sit down." She hesitated, then gave a small laugh. "Well, I won't say no to good food." Logan ordered for them both, choosing something simple but comforting, grilled salmon for her, steak au poivre for himself. Chloe took in the ambiance of the place, shifting awkwardly in her chair. "I feel underdressed," she murmured, tugging at the sleeve of her blouse. "You're not," Logan replied, without looking up. "You're present. That's more than most." Their starters arrived, and Chloe, encouraged by his calm demeanor, began to talk, slowly at first, then more freely. "I was the first in my family to go to college," she said, cutting into a warm goat cheese salad. "But I had to leave after 2 years. My dad passed away. My mom got sick soon after, and my little brother was just 10 at the time." She took a sip of water, eyes flicking away briefly. "So I moved back, took any job I could find, hotel night shifts, reception, cleaning rooms, whatever paid enough to keep the lights on and get Joey to school." Logan listened, unusually quiet. No one in his world talked like this anymore, so candid, so raw. "But even then," she continued, "I loved the job. There's something about hotels, like they're little worlds of their own. People come in tired, anxious, heartbroken, and you get to give them warmth. Even if just for a night." Logan's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. She looked up. "I know, it sounds cheesy, but I always thought a good hotel makes someone feel like they matter, like they're safe, respected, like they have value." His chest tightened. Her words mirrored something he'd once written on a scrap of notebook paper at 13 years old, hiding under a staircase in a rundown shelter that used to be a motel. "One day, I'll build a place where people don't have to be afraid." He hadn't remembered that memory in years. Chloe didn't notice his shift in expression. She went on, filling the silence between courses with small stories about her first disastrous front desk shift, about teaching her brother how to tie a tie using YouTube, about learning how to silence a noisy minibar at midnight. The main course arrived. As the waiter bent to serve, a plate wobbled, sliding off his tray. In one quick motion, Chloe reached out and steadied it, catching the edge just before it tipped. A few drops of sauce spilled on her sleeve, but she waved it off, smiling reassuringly at the flustered young man. "It's okay. Happens to all of us," she said warmly. Then, turning to Logan, she added, "It's scarier on the first week. Trust me." Logan didn't say anything, but he noticed how the waiter's shoulders dropped in relief, how Chloe asked if he was okay rather than complain. When dessert was offered, Chloe declined politely. "This has already been the most unexpected and nicest meal I've had in ages." Logan reached into his inner pocket and placed a sleek white business card on the table. "My office," he said. "Come by tomorrow morning. I have a real offer this time." She looked down at the card, reading the embossed letters. Logan Hale, CEO, Hale Hospitality Group. Her head jerked up. "Wait, you're that Mr. Hale?" Logan just gave a faint smile. "Still interested?" Chloe blinked, then slowly smiled back. "Even more." The next morning, Chloe stood outside the glass tower of Hale Hospitality, the resume folder clutched in her hands. A security guard greeted her, then ushered her up to the top floor. Logan stood by the window, a mug in his hand, looking more like an architect than a CEO. "Morning," he said simply. "Ready?" She nodded, feeling both nervous and excited. He handed her a slim folder. Short-term project. We're renovating one of our oldest hotels. I want your input. Me? She blinked. You, he confirmed. You understand what this is supposed to feel like. 2 days later, they drove out of the city. Chloe watched the skyline fade, replaced by cracked sidewalks and forgotten streets. The car stopped in front of a 3-story building with faded shutters and a crooked neon sign, the Elmwood Inn. Inside, the air was musty but gentle, like pages of an old book. Logan handed her a hard hat. Careful where you step, he warned. He let her wander the lobby, now stripped bare for renovation. Exposed beams, dusty chandeliers, peeling wallpaper. Yet something about it felt oddly warm. Chloe took a few steps forward, eyes tilted up at the high ceiling. I can almost picture how it used to be, she murmured. She didn't see the puddle of water left from a leaking pipe ahead. Her heels splashed into it, slid, and in an instant her foot gave way. Whoa. Logan moved faster than she expected. He caught her by the arms, pulling her toward him before she could hit the floor. She collided with his chest, hard enough to smell the faint scent of rain and cedar clinging to his sweater. His hands steadied her at the waist, her palms pressed against his chest for balance. For a heartbeat too long, neither of them moved. Her eyes flicked up to meet his, dark, steady, searching, and his gaze held hers, just as startled. The echoing space around them seemed to disappear. Then Logan cleared his throat, gently easing her upright. Chloe stepped back quickly, smoothing her blouse, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear to hide her blush. Sorry, she whispered, laughing softly. Guess I wasn't watching where I was going. Old building, Logan said quietly, his voice rougher than usual. It's easy to slip. She forced a small, embarrassed smile, brushing at her sleeve. Well, at least now I know the safety hazards firsthand. For a moment, he almost smiled back, then gestured for her to continue her tour. Stay close, he murmured. They walked together toward the kitchen area. On the far wall, Chloe noticed a series of old black and white photographs left from decades past. One in particular caught her eye. It showed a small boy, barefoot and thin, standing near a battered stove, clutching a spoon like a lifeline. His shirt hung off one shoulder, his hair unkempt. But his eyes, wide, uncertain, but resilient, stared straight at the camera. Chloe tilted her head. Who's that? Logan's gaze flicked briefly to the picture. Probably someone who used to stay here. This place doubled as a shelter years ago. Kids would sneak in to keep warm in the kitchen. She looked back at the boy in the photograph. He looked so small. Logan stepped closer, his voice low. Probably dreamed of a warm bed, a place where no one made him feel like a burden. Chloe didn't answer at first. She looked from the photograph to Logan, noting the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes seemed far away. There was a truth in his tone she couldn't quite name, but it sank into her anyway. You speak like you knew him, she said softly. Logan didn't reply. He only offered a faint smile. I knew the feeling. They moved on through the building, but the moment lingered between them, an awkward slip, an unexpected closeness, and the sense that maybe this man was carrying more than his suit revealed. The following week, the air inside the Elmwood Inn shifted. With each layer of dust wiped away, each cracked tile repaired, Chloe began to see more than just a building coming back to life. She saw Logan, layer by layer, unfolding with it. One late afternoon she headed upstairs to check on the newly installed locks for the second-floor guest rooms. Room 207 had been flagged for problems with the keycard system, and Chloe wanted to inspect it herself. As she turned the hallway corner, a familiar silhouette caught her eye. Logan. He was crouched by the door, sleeves rolled up again, shirt smudged with oil and dust. In his hands was a screwdriver and the disassembled face of the lock. The sight stopped her mid-step. Sir? She asked, surprised. He looked up, a sheepish half-smile tugging at his mouth. Don't sir me. Maintenance said they'd come tomorrow. Miss Helen needed her room locked tonight. Standing beside him was Miss Helen, the same elderly woman who'd been staying temporarily while her building underwent repairs. Her cardigan hung off one shoulder, her silver hair pinned loosely, her eyes kind. "I told him I could wait," she said to Chloe. "But this boy's always been stubborn." Chloe raised an eyebrow. "Always?" Miss Helen chuckled. "He used to sleep on the lobby couch here, little thing, always cold, always polite. I worked in the laundry back then, sometimes snuck him extra blankets." Chloe's gaze darted to Logan, who didn't look up this time, just kept working on the lock. "He never asked for anything," Miss Helen continued fondly. "But I saw it in his eyes. He wanted to be more. Now look at him. Fixing locks he could have paid 5 people to fix." She leaned in and whispered to Chloe, "Sweetheart, you've found the right man." Chloe stood still, her heart suddenly heavy in her chest. A few minutes later, the lock clicked into place. Logan stood, wiped his hands on a rag, and tested the door. "There we go," he said, smiling at Miss Helen. "Should be good as new." "Better than new," she replied, patting his arm. Chloe followed him down the hallway. "You really slept here?" He glanced at her, eyes soft. It was warm. That was enough. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. That night, the rain came. Chloe stayed late again, organizing files in the site office. When she finally packed her things, she realized, with a groan, she'd forgotten her jacket in one of the guest rooms. The wind had picked up, and the walk home would be miserable. She trudged back into the front lobby, prepared to just make a run for it. But something stopped her. On the front counter, folded neatly, was a navy blue coat. Not hers, bigger, warmer. And on top of it, a small slip of paper, handwritten in blocky, steady letters. "Don't let yourself freeze out there. The people who need you will want you healthy." There was no name, but she knew. She pressed the coat to her chest, smiling in spite of herself. The fabric still held a trace of his scent, something clean, grounded, quietly masculine. Outside, the rain fell harder. Inside, something warmer settled in her chest. The next morning, Chloe arrived early. Logan was already in the lobby, discussing wood finishes with a contractor. She noticed the subtle pause in his voice when he saw her wearing his coat. He didn't say a word, just nodded once, as if to ask, "Did it help?" She nodded back, her lips curving just slightly. And when he turned away, Chloe let her gaze linger. He wasn't the kind of CEO who barked orders or demanded attention. He fixed locks. He remembered faces. He left coats in the rain. And her heart, slowly, quietly, began to notice him in ways she hadn't let herself before. The days at Elmwood Inn grew brighter, fresh paint, new lights, and warmer smiles. Chloe and Logan worked in quiet rhythm, often sharing glances that lingered just a second longer than needed, conversations that danced just past the surface. Something unspoken was growing, but not everyone approved. One morning, Chloe entered the office to a strange silence. Conversations stopped when she passed. A few glances flickered in her direction, tight-lipped and cold. She found the source quickly. A company gossip blog had leaked photos. One picture showed Logan and Chloe during their first dinner. She was laughing, leaning in, his gaze fixed on her like no one else existed. Another from the hotel renovation, Logan handing her a clipboard, both of them smiling. The headline read, "From waitress to CEO's favorite, staff questions, sudden rise of new girl." Chloe stared at the screen, stomach sinking. The comments were worse. Classic gold digger move. Sleeping her way to the top. So, that's why she got that role. Her phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from home. A text from her mother. "People are calling the house, asking if you're dating your boss. What's going on, sweetie?" Chloe closed her eyes, heart pounding. Later that afternoon, she stood outside Logan's office, unsure whether to knock. Before she could decide, the door opened. He stepped out, surprised to see her. "Chloe, I need to leave the project," she said quietly, voice steady. Logan's brow furrowed. "What? Why?" "You've seen the articles," she replied. "It's not just about me anymore. They're calling my mom. My little sister's crying because kids at school are talking." "I didn't approve any of this," he said, jaw tight. "I know," she said, "but I should have known better." There was pain in her voice. Not anger, disappointment. In herself, in how fragile trust could be. She hesitated, then looked him in the eye. "I sat at the wrong table, but I don't think I sat with the wrong person." She turned and walked away before he could answer. Logan stood still, fists clenched at his sides. By the time he processed it, she was gone. That night, he drove to the coffee shop where they first met. Her name wasn't on the schedule. He asked around the neighborhood. No one had seen her. He went to the small boarding house where she stayed. Her room was empty, the landlord shrugging. Packed up quick, said it was time to go home. Rain threatened as he sat in his car, staring at the windshield. He didn't know where her hometown was. She'd never mentioned the name. Just vague images of fields, a vegetable garden, a sick mother. He cursed himself for never asking. At home, Logan sat at his desk, staring at the blank page before him. Then he reached for a pen. The letter was short. "I don't know how to prove I'm not the man they say I am. But I know you're not the girl they call you. You didn't climb. You walked, and I followed. You were never a mistake, Chloe. Not to me." He folded it, tucked it into an envelope, and left it at the front desk of the Elmwood Inn. A place he hoped, maybe, one day, she'd return to. The sky in Chloe's hometown always felt a little wider. She had been back for a week now, waking at dawn, helping her mother tend the garden, making breakfast with old pots that clanged like memories. It wasn't the city, but it was quieter here. Quieter than the noise in her head. Every time her phone buzzed, she ignored it. She had deleted the article, shut off social media, packed her things in silence. No one here asked questions. Her mother didn't push. She only offered warm soup and gentle smiles. Until one afternoon, a low hum outside stirred them both. Chloe stepped out, eyes narrowing at the pickup truck pulling into the front yard. Dust kicked up, a familiar figure emerging from behind the wheel. Logan. In jeans, rolled-up sleeves, and boots that looked too clean for real labor, yet he carried a toolbox in one hand, planks of wood in the other. He didn't say a word, just looked at her, nodded once, then walked past her toward the sagging front porch. Chloe stood frozen. He climbed the steps, examined the crooked roof edge, then set to work. Hammer, nails, tape measure. She watched him silently from the doorway, arms crossed, unsure whether to cry or shout. But instead, she walked inside. An hour passed. Then another. He didn't stop, didn't look for thanks. He moved like he belonged there, like the creaking wood was speaking to him in a language only he understood. From the kitchen window, her mother watched. "He's been out there for hours," she murmured. Chloe said nothing. Her mother turned to her, voice low and knowing. "I saw the way he looked at you. It wasn't because of the title." Chloe swallowed. When the sun began to dip low, Logan finally wiped his brow, stretched his back, and turned toward the door. Chloe met him halfway. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "I wanted to," he replied, simply. They sat on the porch, a chipped table between them. Her mother brought out 2 cups of tea, gave Logan a nod, and disappeared inside. The silence hung for a moment, broken only by cicadas and the creak of the old swing. Logan looked at her, serious now. "I'm not here for the company," he said. "Not for damage control. not to fix a story. Chloe looked down, fingers curling around her mug. He continued, voice soft but sure. I'm not asking you to come back to the city, or the job, or the projects. She looked up. I'm asking you to come back to me, he said, because I'm not inviting you to a role. I'm inviting you to a life. Her eyes widened, breath catching. I'm not perfect, he added, but when I lost you, the noise didn't stop. The silence just got louder. Chloe let out a shaky laugh, blinking away the sting in her eyes. You didn't come here with flowers. No, he smiled faintly. Just cedar planks and rusted nails. She looked at him then, really looked. At the man who didn't run. The man who built things instead of breaking them. And in that moment, under the soft pink sky, she realized she had never left alone. He had followed, quietly, patiently, entirely. And maybe she was ready to turn back. The air in the city felt different as Chloe stepped off the bus, crisper, somehow clearer. She hadn't planned to return, not this soon. But the memory of Logan's words still echoed in her mind. I'm inviting you to a life. That, and the way he had rebuilt her mother's porch without asking for anything in return. Now she stood in front of the Elmwood Inn. The renovations were complete. New glass doors, flower beds blooming with marigolds, a freshly painted sign above the entrance. But it was the wooden plaque near the steps that made her pause. Etched in elegant script, it read, Home for Hope, free lodging for those in need. Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears brimmed as she stepped closer, fingertips grazing the smooth letters. He had done it. He had taken her words, that night at dinner, when she nervously spoke about what a hotel should mean, and turned them into something real. I believe a hotel isn't just a place to sleep. It's a place that makes people feel like they matter. Footsteps approached behind her. She didn't need to turn. I hoped you'd come, Logan said quietly. She looked over her shoulder, eyes shining. When did you do this? He smiled, soft and proud. The idea started the night we first talked. I just didn't have the heart to build it until you left. She laughed through her tears, shaking her head. You remembered everything. I remember what matters, he replied. A pause, tender and fragile. I didn't want this place to just open doors, he continued. I wanted it to open hearts, because that's what you did, for me. Before she could respond, a voice called from the lobby. Logan, the staff's ready. He looked at Chloe. Come with me? She nodded, following him inside. The team was gathered in the main lounge, now transformed into a cozy common area with armchairs and soft lighting. Murmurs hushed as Logan stepped forward, Chloe by his side. He cleared his throat. I owe all of you transparency, he began. There have been rumors, speculation. He glanced at Chloe, then back at his team. I met Chloe by accident, but I got to know her by choice. Some raised brows, a few crossed arms. Logan didn't flinch. I didn't choose her because of her title. I chose her because of her heart. Because she reminded me why I started all this in the first place. He paused, voice thick with sincerity. When I was a kid, I used to sleep in this lobby. I had no name, no money, and no place to belong. But a few kind people gave me a chance. That chance became this company. He turned to Chloe. She didn't know my past. She didn't care about my future. She just saw a man fixing a broken lock for an old woman, and she stayed. A silence followed. Then, slowly, one by one, the staff began to nod. Some smiled. A few even clapped. Chloe stood frozen, overwhelmed. Logan stepped closer, voice low. I don't know what your answer is, about anything, but I wanted you to know, I've never been prouder of anything than I am of standing next to you. She looked up at him, and for the first time in weeks, her heart felt steady. She wasn't here as an employee. She wasn't here for closure. She was here because something had pulled her back. And she was ready to choose too. The wooden chimes above the doorway of Little Haven sang softly as the autumn wind danced through the open windows, rustling the lace curtains and sending the scent of cinnamon rolls and fresh coffee wafting into the air. The hum of quiet conversation, clinking silverware, and gentle laughter wrapped the cafe in a blanket of warmth. A small crowd had gathered near the open concept kitchen, watching as Chloe, now glowing with a quiet, steady confidence, balanced a tray of warm pastries with practiced grace. Her apron was dusted with flour, her golden hair swept into a loose braid that fell gently over one shoulder. She moved like someone who had found her rhythm, her home, her peace. Children's feet thudded across the old wooden floor, weaving between the tables, their hands sticky with frosting. One of them giggled as he nearly bumped into Chloe, who steadied him with a gentle smile and a playful pat on the head. It had been a year since she walked away from the city, from whispers and headlines, from the world that tried to define her. A year since she'd last seen the man who once changed everything with a simple misunderstanding and a seat at the wrong table. And yet, every morning as she unlocked the cafe door and took that first breath of coffee and dough, his memory arrived with the sunlight, uninvited, yet welcome. Today felt different. She stepped out into the main room, weaving through guests, offering warm greetings and taking empty mugs from regulars who had become family. Then she saw him. Sitting at a weathered wooden table by the window, the one she had sanded and stained herself with tired hands and hopeful eyes, the table no one ever chose, until now. Logan. He wore a navy shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, and sat with calm purpose, hands folded on the table as if he'd been waiting for this moment all morning. His dark eyes found hers instantly, and everything, the children, the chatter, the chimes, fell silent. Chloe's breath caught in her throat. The tray in her hands wobbled. He rose slowly, as if not to startle her. She stepped forward, her feet moving before her mind could catch up. "Logan," she breathed. He smiled, a small, hopeful thing that reached his eyes. "I hear the cinnamon buns here are famous." She let out a shaky laugh, the sound both surprised and soft. "They might be." Then, without another word, he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and knelt down on one knee. Gasps fluttered through the cafe. Someone dropped a spoon. Chloe stood frozen, tray pressed to her chest. He opened the box. Inside sat a simple, elegant ring that sparkled like the first morning frost. "You once sat at the wrong table," Logan said, voice steady though his eyes shimmered. "Thinking it was a job interview." A few people chuckled, recognizing the story from the whispers and the rumors that had become legend. "But it turned out," he continued, "you were the one interviewing me, testing if I was someone worth staying for." He looked up at her with that same quiet intensity she remembered. "You sat at the wrong seat, but you're the one I never want to let go." Tears filled Chloe's eyes. Her tray slipped from her hands onto a nearby table as she covered her mouth, nodding. "Yes," she whispered, "yes." The room erupted in applause. Outside, the neighborhood children ran by, giggling, holding pieces of leftover wedding cake from a nearby shelf. One little girl stopped, pressed her nose to the glass, and pointed. "Are they getting married?" she asked loudly. Chloe laughed through her tears, nodding. Later that afternoon, with the sun dipping low behind the hills, Chloe and Logan stood hand in hand beneath a wooden sign nailed above the counter. It read, "Right heart, wrong seat, right, forever." And in that cozy little haven, surrounded by flower, laughter, and love, they finally sat at the right table. Together. If this story touched your heart, imagine how many more beautiful moments are waiting to unfold. Sometimes, the wrong seat leads us to the right person. At Kindness and Love Tales, we bring you emotional stories of love, healing, and unexpected connections that warm the soul. Don't miss out on our next tale, Subscribe now, hit the notification bell, and share this story with someone who still believes in serendipity. Because here, every story begins with kindness and ends with love. Subscribe to Kindness and Love Tales today